The Texas sun was ruthless that afternoon, baking the blacktop into a shimmering mirage that seemed to melt the world at the horizon. Cars idled in a growing line, engines humming, tempers flaring, horns blaring in sharp, impatient bursts. Out here on this forgotten stretch of state highway, people had places to be, schedules to keep, and nobody liked being stopped by the unknown. But today, the reason for the backup wasn't a crash, a construction crew, or even a stubborn rancher's cattle. It was a wild animal. Ashley Cole sat in her cruiser, hand resting on the wheel, scanning the scene with practiced eyes. She was the youngest state trooper in her district, her uniform crisp, her expression more guarded than she realized. She could already hear the dispatcher's voice in her head, sharp and annoyed. "Cole, what now? Traffic jam in the middle of nowhere?" But Ashley didn't reach for the radio just yet. Something felt off. Out ahead, in the middle of the road, a small shape crouched low, refusing to budge. She opened the door, the heat slapping her skin, and stepped onto the wavering asphalt. Immediately, the shouts started up. "Hey, trooper, just scare it off." "It's just a cat, lady. Move it already. Some of us got real jobs." "Probably rabid. You want to lose a hand?" Ashley ignored them. The heat was thick, the tension in the air thicker. Thunder rumbled on the horizon. A storm brewing, but not yet here. Her boots crunched gravel as she walked past the line of cars, feeling eyes on her, some mocking, some just annoyed. She was used to being watched, judged. Out here, a woman in uniform had to prove herself every day, sometimes every hour. The animal was just ahead now, a bobcat kitten, its sandy fur spiked with dust, its sides heaving with each breath. It should have bolted at the first sound of cars. It should have been halfway to the next county by now. But it wasn't. Instead, it sat right in the center of the road, bright golden eyes locked onto Ashley's face. She paused. There was something about that look, something urgent, pleading, almost human. Ashley crouched low, making herself small, careful not to spook the kitten. It didn't move. The crowd's shouts faded into a distant buzz. "You lost, little one?" she murmured, her voice just above a whisper. The bobcat didn't answer, but it also didn't run. Its gaze never left hers. Frustration and curiosity tangled in her chest. She'd seen plenty of wild animals, but never one that behaved like this. Never one that seemed to need her. Another horn blared. Someone swore. A woman in a sun hat shouted, "You're just making it worse, officer." But Ashley stayed focused. She took a slow step closer. The kitten didn't flinch. Instead, it made a soft, strangled meow, halfway between a cry and a warning. Was it hurt? Trapped? Ashley scanned the animal's legs, her gaze catching on something strange. A blue plastic device strapped just above the left paw. Not a tag from Fish and Wildlife, nothing official. Something else. Something out of place. A prickle ran up Ashley's spine. Instinct told her to call for backup, to let animal control deal with it. But instinct also told her this was more than it seemed. She felt a tug deep inside. A memory, maybe, of all the times she'd been the one left out. The one people wished would just disappear. You don't belong here. Just leave it. Play it safe. But she couldn't walk away. The bobcat inched closer, its ears flattened, tail flicking. It looked past Ashley to the crowd, then back to her, almost as if asking for protection. From them, from something. Thunder cracked again, closer now. A single fat raindrop landed on the road, sizzled, and was gone. Ashley glanced back at the crowd. A truck driver rolled his window down and yelled, "Come on, lady. Some of us gotta eat lunch today." She straightened, holding up a hand. "Stay in your vehicles." Someone booed, Another person muttered, "Waste of time." But Ashley didn't care. Not now. She took another step, talking low, calm. "Easy, little one. I'm not here to hurt you. Just want to see what's wrong." The kitten stood its ground, quivering but unafraid. For a heartbeat, Ashley saw herself in those wild eyes. A misfit, cornered by a world that didn't understand. A voice in her ear. The radio at last. "Unit 19, report. You holding up traffic for a house cat?" Ashley pressed the mic. "Negative, dispatch, not a house cat. Looks like a juvenile bobcat. Possible injury. Possible other situation." A pause. Then a sigh. "Cole, you're kidding me. Move it along." But Ashley wasn't moving anywhere. She was past the point of turning back. Something about this moment, the storm, the crowd, the stranded animal, felt charged with meaning. As she knelt, the kitten finally broke its stare, glancing at her belt, then at the trees lining the road. It wanted something, needed something. The blue tag gleamed in the light, almost like a signal. "Okay," Ashley said softly, decision burning in her chest. "I'm here. Show me." For a breathless moment, nothing happened. Then the bobcat turned, limping toward the tree line, pausing after a few steps to look back at her. The question hung in the air. What would you do if you were the only one who could help? Ashley stood, heart pounding, every instinct on edge. The first real drops of rain began to fall. Behind her, the cars waited, the crowd growing restless. But Ashley only had eyes for the wild, desperate animal leading her off the road and into the unknown. She followed. Rain spattered Ashley's shoulders as she stepped off the pavement, her boots sinking into the damp, clumpy grass at the road's edge. The air felt charged, the humidity swelling with the oncoming storm, every breath heavy with the scent of wet earth and summer. Her cruiser and the row of cars faded behind her, the noise of impatient drivers replaced by the muffled hush of nature. A stillness broken only by the drumming of raindrops and the soft, urgent rustle of the undergrowth. The bobcat kitten, limping but determined, kept glancing back, as if to make sure Ashley was following. Each time its wild golden eyes met hers, something silent passed between them, a challenge, a plea, an unspoken trust neither quite understood. Ashley's own heart thudded in her chest, adrenaline tangling with old doubts. Was she risking her job, her reputation for a wild animal? Did she care? The questions burned, but curiosity and instinct had already won. She pressed her shoulder mic again, voice low. "Dispatch. I'm following a juvenile bobcat off the roadway, possible injury, unknown circumstances. There's some kind of blue device attached to its leg. Not a standard tracker. Might be an emergency beacon." The radio crackled. "Cole, don't be ridiculous. Wildlife control's on their way. Just hold the perimeter and stay put. We can't have you getting bit out there." Ashley thumbed the mic off, jaw set. She'd been brushed off too many times to count. Her concerns dismissed. Her instincts doubted. Out here, surrounded by tangled mesquite and whispering grass, nobody was watching. Nobody but her, the bobcat, and the gathering storm. The kitten paused ahead, rain flattening the fur along its spine, tail twitching. Ashley knelt, squinting through the gloom, studying the blue device more closely as the animal's leg caught a shaft of pale light. Not a wildlife tracker, she realized with a start. It was bigger, clumsier, almost like a hiking emergency beacon, the kind serious backcountry hikers used in case they got lost or hurt. How would a wild bobcat end up with a human emergency beacon? Ashley's mind spun with possibilities, none of them good. The rain intensified, pattering through the leaves above, soaking her uniform. Thunder rumbled, closer now, a warning from the sky. The woods thickened as she pushed farther from the safety of the road, every step sinking deeper into mud and uncertainty. Suddenly, a memory surfaced. Ashley, age 9, standing in the woods behind her foster home, lost for hours, panic rising in her chest. She remembered the gnawing loneliness, the sense of being invisible to the world. That same loneliness shone in the kitten's eyes, a desperation she knew too well. "Easy, girl," she murmured, voice trembling with empathy she didn't expect. "I'm right behind you. Show me what you want me to see." A sudden crash sounded behind her. Maybe a branch. Maybe something bigger. Ashley spun, hand on her sidearm, every nerve on alert. But it was just the wind, swirling debris through the understory, reminding her that she was out here alone, by choice, with only instinct for a guide, the kitten. Nova, she found herself thinking, naming the little survivor, crept on, pausing at the edge of a shallow creek swollen by the first rush of rain. She glanced back again, eyes bright. Ashley took a careful step, her boots slipping in the mud, and followed. Every sense sharpened, scanning for movement, for danger, for a sign she was on the right path. As they wove deeper into the woods, Ashley's phone buzzed. Dispatch again, no doubt. She ignored it. Instead, she fished a small flashlight from her belt, flicking the beam across the bobcat's leg as Nova paused atop a fallen log. There, on the side of the blue beacon, she could just make out faded letters. Whitley. Ashley's breath caught. Robert Whitley. The name rang a bell, a local legend, a wildlife rehabilitator known for rescuing everything from orphaned foxes to injured hawks. He'd gone missing 2 days ago, last seen heading into these very woods to check on a release site. Search crews had swept the area, but the storm had forced them back. No sign of Robert. Until now, heart racing, Ashley crouched lower, holding her hands out. "Nova, is that you, girl? Did he send you?" The bobcat's ears pricked. She didn't run. Instead, she planted herself on the log, as if waiting for permission, as if challenging Ashley to trust her. For a long moment, woman and wildcat regarded each other, two creatures out of place, caught between worlds. Behind her, the echo of the crowd's jeers still rang in Ashley's mind. If she was wrong, if this was all just some freak accident, she'd be the laughingstock of the department, maybe even written up for abandoning her post. But if she was right, if Robert Whitley was out here somewhere, hurt or worse, would you follow a wild animal into danger if it meant saving a stranger? Ashley took a deep breath and nodded. "All right, Nova, lead the way." With a flick of her tail, the bobcat hopped down and slipped into the underbrush, moving faster now, as if urgency had finally overcome caution. Ashley scrambled to keep up, branches tearing at her sleeves, the world narrowing to the sound of her own heartbeat and the wet, urgent padding of Nova's paws. The storm was nearly upon them now, sky bruising to black, flashes of lightning illuminating the twisted trunks ahead. Ashley's radio barked static, dispatch trying again to call her back, but she let it fall silent. There was no turning back. Nova slowed as they reached a stand of pines, the ground here thick with needles and the air heavy with the scent of sap and rain. The bobcat paused at the base of a large tree, glancing up, then at Ashley, as if inviting her to look closer. There, scattered in the mud, were fresh boot prints, a trail that zigzagged through the pines. Ashley knelt, running her fingers over the deep impressions, feeling the story in every scuffed toe and desperate stride. Drops of blood, dark against the red soil, marked the trail. A torn piece of fabric, blue nylon like from a hiker's backpack, clung to a nearby branch. Ashley's mind raced. The tag, the blood, the boot prints, all pointed to the same truth. Robert Whitley had been here, and he wasn't alone. Nova paced nervously, glancing from the evidence to Ashley, willing her to understand. Lightning flashed again, and for an instant, the world seemed suspended in silver light. Two survivors in the eye of the storm, caught between fear and hope. Ashley's doubts faded, replaced by determination. She had come too far to let fear win now. Kneeling in the mud, she pressed the torn fabric to her chest, whispering, "Hang on, Robert. I'm coming." Nova circled close, just beyond reach, her eyes fierce with purpose. For the first time, Ashley let herself hope that together, they might find what no one else could. And somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled, a warning and a promise. The hunt had truly begun. The woods closed in around Ashley like a living thing, swallowing her whole. The heat of the highway faded, replaced by a damp, green coolness that seemed to seep into her bones. Her uniform, already soaked from the rain, clung to her skin, and every breath she took was heavy with the scent of moss and pine needles. The only sounds were the rhythmic drip of rain off the leaves above and the soft, careful steps of Nova ahead of her, just barely visible in the deepening twilight. Ashley hesitated, heart hammering in her chest. The sense of urgency was stronger than ever. Robert Whitley was out here somewhere, possibly bleeding, maybe unconscious, and no one knew but her and this wild, broken kitten. The decision to leave the road behind had been instinctive. Now, trudging through mud and roots, she was beginning to realize just how far she was from anything familiar or safe. Every step brought a new set of doubts. Her flashlight's beam wobbled over twisted branches and the tangle of underbrush. She heard distant thunder, rumbling closer, and imagined dispatch back at the station, furious that she'd ignored protocol. Would they even send backup, or just write her up for going rogue? Nova's small form darted forward and paused, tail flicking, ears swiveling at every sound. For a moment, Ashley could almost believe the kitten understood her fears, maybe even shared them. Neither of them truly belonged anywhere. Ashley, the outsider cop, always a little too quiet, too different for the department's boys' club. Nova, the wild thing with a name, limping through a world that saw her as a threat or a curiosity, never as a soul in need. "Hey, Nova," Ashley said, voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know if you understand, but I'm trusting you." The Bobcat glanced back, eyes glinting, then continued, picking a careful path through the wet ferns and over slick roots. Ashley's boots slipped, her foot sinking ankle-deep in mud. She cursed softly and steadied herself, the darkness thickening all around. Her senses stretched out, hyper-alert. Every snap of a twig, every rush of water nearby, every shifting shadow could mean danger or hope. Suddenly, Nova stopped short at a tangle of fallen branches. Ashley followed, crouching low, and there in the half-light she saw the first clear sign that someone else had come this way. Bootprints. Fresh, pressed deep into the soft earth, weaving through the trees. Drops of blood, dark and glossy in the beam of her flashlight, led onward. She swallowed hard, pushing down the sick feeling in her stomach. "Hang on, Robert. Don't you quit on me now." The rain eased to a gentle mist, and Ashley pressed on, every sense straining to read the story written in the forest. The undergrowth thickened, thorns tugging at her sleeves, branches scratching her face. Every now and then, she'd catch a glimpse of blue, Nova's beacon, flashing through the ferns, a lifeline pulling her deeper into the shadows. In the quiet, her mind wandered back to her own childhood, to the loneliness that had shaped her. She'd been that lost kid in the woods, invisible in a crowded world. There'd been no rescue, no one who cared enough to follow. Only the memory of that isolation had ever kept her moving forward. Now, in these woods, with a wild animal as her guide, she felt the weight of those old wounds. But she also felt something new, a sense of purpose, a fragile thread of hope. Nova suddenly froze, head up, body rigid. Ashley stopped, heart pounding. In the hush, she heard something, a faint groan, the sound of someone trying and failing to call for help. She pressed forward, ducking under a low branch, and almost stumbled over the torn remains of a backpack. Blue nylon shredded, one strap streaked with blood. Her hands shook as she rifled through the contents. A half-empty water bottle, a battered notebook, a faded photo of Robert Whitley holding a baby owl. The sight of that gentle smile, the kindness in his eyes, made her throat tighten. A flicker of movement pulled her focus. Nova had doubled back, circling something on the ground. Ashley inched closer, flashlight beam trembling. More blood, fresh now, smeared across the ferns and pine needles. She knelt, studying the ground. It told a story. Robert had crawled here, tried to bandage his leg. There was a strip of fabric tied tight, a crude tourniquet. He dropped the beacon, but Nova had found it, brought it to the road, somehow knowing it was a call for help. For the first time, Ashley realized just how smart the Bobcat really was. Not just smart, loyal. Driven by a bond she'd only seen in working dogs, never in a wild animal. Nova met her gaze, and in that moment, Ashley felt the gulf between wild and tame shrink to almost nothing. The woods grew darker, the rain nearly stopped, the silence broken only by the sound of Ashley's own breath. She checked her radio. Static. No signal this deep in the forest. She closed her eyes for a moment, steadying herself. Fear pressed in from every side. Fear of failing. Fear of being too late. Fear of letting the world prove her wrong. But hope, stubborn as a weed, pushed back. She looked to Nova. "Let's find him. Lead on." The Bobcat turned, nose to the ground, and started forward again. Slower now, cautious, but sure of the way. Ashley followed, picking her way through the maze of roots and shadows, heart hammering, legs aching. As the ground began to slope downward, the smell of wet earth grew stronger. They were close to water, maybe a ravine or creek. Nova stopped at the edge of a steep bank, peering down into the darkness below. Ashley braced herself and slid down the muddy slope, flashlight flickering over tangled brush and rocks. Nova watched, tense but calm, as if guarding her from the shadows. At the bottom, Ashley landed hard, knees stinging. She scanned the gloom, and there, beneath an overhanging root, saw the faint outline of a man. Robert Whitley lay half-hidden in the mud, face pale, eyes closed. One leg was twisted beneath him, soaked with blood. The blue harness Nova had once worn was clutched in his hand. Ashley rushed to his side, dropping to her knees. "Robert, can you hear me? Robert, it's Ashley Cole. You're safe. I've got you." He stirred, lips moving. Nova crept closer, curling around his arm, as if to comfort them both. Ashley pressed her radio, praying for a signal. "Dispatch, officer down. Need EMS at my location. Repeat. Need immediate medical." Only static. She pressed her palm to Robert's cheek, felt a weak pulse. "Hang on, Robert. I'm here. Nova brought me. We're going to get you home." Nova settled beside him, her wild gaze calm and unblinking, a silent promise in the deepening dark. And for the first time, Ashley felt something she hadn't felt in years. Not just hope, but the certainty that she, too, was exactly where she belonged. The ravine was a different world, cut deep into the heart of the woods and choked with shadow. Ashley's breath came in shallow bursts as she knelt in the wet, loamy soil beside Robert Whitley, adrenaline fighting with exhaustion inside her chest. Rainwater trickled down the steep banks, pooling in the hollows and running in quick silver rivulets toward the dark, unseen bottom. The storm was here for real now. Lightning flickered between the tree trunks above, thunder rolling, making the ground tremble under her boots. She glanced back the way she'd come. Nothing but the slick, muddy slope she'd slid down, roots like the twisted fingers of a sleeping giant clutching the bank. No way she was getting Robert back up that way, not without help, not without a miracle. She turned her attention back to him, forcing her hands steady. Robert was breathing, but only barely. His face was ashen, sweat slicking his brow even as the rain cooled the air. Blood matted the torn fabric at his thigh. His lips moved, soundless at first, then managing a hoarse whisper. "Nova." Ashley leaned closer. "I'm here, Robert. Nova's here too. We found you." At the sound of her name, the Bobcat pressed in, her small body sliding under Robert's limp arm. She yowled, sharp, wild, almost angry at the world for letting things come to this. Her fur was soaked, her eyes wild and wide, but she pressed close to Robert, as if determined to keep him tethered to the living. Ashley tried her radio again. "Dispatch, this is Cole. Officer and civilian down, deep ravine off County Road 17. Request immediate backup and EMS, over." Static. No response. The storm must have knocked out the signal, or maybe the ravine was just too deep for any transmission to break through. Ashley swallowed the knot of fear rising in her throat. The scene around her sharpened with detail. The slap of rain on mud. The way Robert's boots lay half buried in silt. Nova's tail curled protectively around his wrist. The world up on the road, the honking cars, the angry faces, all felt impossibly far away. Here there was only the forest, the rain, the three of them, outcasts together. Ashley pulled out her flashlight, cupping the beam with her hand to check Robert's wound. Blood oozed slowly from beneath the makeshift tourniquet, a belt looped tight above the knee. The skin below was bluish, the wound ragged. She pulled off her jacket, wadding it under his head. "You're going to be okay. Just hang in there. I'm not leaving you." A memory flickered. Her own childhood. Lying in a hospital bed after a bad fall, no one coming to visit. The sense that she could disappear and the world wouldn't notice. She shoved it away and focused on the present. Not this time, not today. Nova nudged her hand, and Ashley stroked the kitten's fur, soft but matted with rain and mud. "You did good, girl. Real good." The Bobcat blinked slowly, a strange, almost human trust in her golden eyes. Suddenly, Robert's fingers tightened around the harness in his fist. He struggled to speak. She came back for me, went for help." Ashley leaned in, heart pounding. "You're safe now, I promise. Nova led me right to you." He managed a weak smile. "Smartest animal I ever knew." A gust of wind tore through the ravine, bringing the chill of the storm. The rain was coming down harder, water rising, beginning to pool around their ankles. Ashley's uniform was ripped at the knee, blood and mud mixing on her skin. But she barely felt it. All her focus was on Robert and Nova. A new problem pressed at the edge of her mind. The water was rising, slow but steady. If the rain kept up, this ravine could flood in minutes. She needed a plan, and she needed it fast. Ashley scanned the bank for a path out. Nothing but sheer, muddy walls and tangled roots. She could climb, maybe, but never with Robert in this condition. Even if she could get to the top, there was no guarantee she'd be able to signal for help in time. Nova yowled again, louder this time, as if urging her to act. Ashley remembered the earlier question that had haunted her since she stepped onto the road. Does love, across species, across worlds, make the impossible possible? She looked at Nova, then at Robert, and knew her answer. She wouldn't give up. She fished out her phone, one bar flickering. No service for a call, but maybe, just maybe, she could send a text or ping her last location. She typed out a frantic message to dispatch, dropped her phone in her pocket, and started looking through Robert's battered backpack. Maybe there was something, anything, that could help. Inside, she found a field knife, a half-empty roll of bandages, a plastic poncho, and a flare. Not much, but better than nothing. She retightened Robert's tourniquet, wrapped his leg with the cleanest bandages she could find, then pulled the poncho over both of them to shield them from the worst of the rain. She crouched beside him, mind racing, every sense on high alert. "You hang on, Robert. You hear me? Nova and we're going to get you out of here." Robert's breathing was shallow, but his grip on the harness remained strong. "Never seen her trust anyone like this," he whispered. "She chose you." Ashley looked at Nova, wild, battered, stubborn, and felt a wave of gratitude and awe. In this impossible situation, they were a team. Human, animal, both fighting for a chance. A flash of lightning illuminated the ravine, painting everything in stark white for an instant. Ashley saw her own reflection in Nova's wide eyes, a mix of fear and fierce determination. If you were lost, who would come for you? The question echoed in her mind. She braced herself, hands trembling but strong. "We're going to make it. I promise." Outside, the water kept rising, but inside, in the shelter of the ravine and the bond they'd forged, hope flickered like a lantern against the dark. Ashley pressed her radio again, voice steady this time. "Hold on. Help is coming. I won't let go." Nova curled tighter around Robert, her purring rumble almost lost in the roar of the storm, a wild guardian refusing to yield. Ashley watched over them both, a protector and a witness, refusing to give in to fear. And as the storm raged, she realized that somehow she was exactly where she needed to be, fighting, hoping, refusing to let the world swallow them whole. The storm's fury grew with each minute, lightning splitting the sky and thunder shaking the ravine. Rain poured down in sheets, soaking Ashley to the skin and turning the ravine's floor into a thick, swirling soup of mud. The water was creeping steadily higher, swirling around her ankles now, and the stream at the bottom of the gully had transformed into a rushing, chocolate-brown torrent. Ashley's mind spun with calculation and worry. She knelt by Robert, his breathing shallow but steady. Nova huddled protectively between them, her fur plastered to her sides, but her eyes never leaving Ashley's. The little bobcat's fierce presence seemed to anchor her, giving her the courage to keep going when panic threatened to take hold. She checked Robert's pulse again. Weak, but there. She needed to get him to higher ground before the ravine became a death trap, but the sides were steep, muddy, nearly impossible to climb, especially carrying an injured man. Her radio still sputtered static. The faint glow of her phone's screen mocked her. Message not delivered. No help was coming, at least not yet. Ashley looked at Nova. The bobcat was trembling, but there was a stubborn intelligence in her gaze, as if she understood the urgency. Ashley met her eyes. "We have to move, Nova. Can you help me?" A clap of thunder rattled through the trees above. Robert moaned softly, his eyes fluttering open. "What happened?" Ashley squeezed his shoulder. "You're hurt, but I'm going to get you out. You hear me?" He coughed, then gave a weak nod, a ghost of a smile flickering at the corners of his mouth. "Nova always finds a way." Ashley fished the flare from Robert's backpack and jammed it into her belt for later. The rain had slackened a little, but the water was rising faster now, rushing past her boots. She forced herself to think. Training, instincts, everything she'd ever learned about emergencies and rescues. She pulled off her belt and, using the knife, cut the plastic poncho into strips. With shaking fingers, she lashed two stout branches together into makeshift splints and fastened them to Robert's leg. She wished she had more time, more light, more of everything, but time was the one thing they didn't have. Nova began pacing, her paws sinking into the soft mud, tail flicking urgently. She darted toward the shallowest part of the ravine wall, paused, and looked back. Ashley understood. Nova was trying to find a path out. Lightning struck again, close enough to send the smell of ozone through the air. The water was up to Ashley's shins now, cold and fast. "We have to go, now!" she told Robert, voice sharp and clear. She slid her arms under his shoulders, bracing herself for the weight. Robert tried to help, gritting his teeth as pain shot through his leg. Together, awkward and slow, they struggled to their feet, Nova circling them like a shepherd. The world had narrowed to a single desperate task: survive. Ashley's uniform was torn, her hair plastered to her face, her muscles burned with effort as she dragged Robert toward the place Nova had chosen, a spot where the mud was firmer, the roots thicker, offering handholds. She grabbed the flare from her belt and cracked it. Red fire sputtered and hissed, cutting through the gloom. Ashley wedged it into a root, hoping it might catch the attention of a rescue team, if they were anywhere close. "Hold on, Robert. You've got to help me," Ashley urged, voice trembling with effort and fear. Robert locked his good arm around her neck, trying not to be dead weight. Nova scrambled ahead, her claws digging into the muddy slope, searching for the safest path. She stopped, looked back, and yowled, a wild, raw sound that cut through the noise of the storm. Ashley followed, step by agonizing step, using the roots and Nova's guidance to claw their way up. Midway up the bank, the mud gave way beneath her boots, sending them both sliding back. Robert cried out, his leg twisted in the mud. Ashley gritted her teeth, braced herself, and tried again, driven by adrenaline and a stubborn refusal to let the storm win. As they climbed, a sudden roar erupted above, the distinctive rumble of earth giving way. Ashley looked up in time to see part of the ravine wall collapse in a muddy landslide, crashing down exactly where they'd been lying minutes before. The reality hit her hard. If she'd hesitated, they'd be buried. Nova darted away from the falling debris, then returned, urging them onward. Ashley locked eyes with the Bobcat, nodding in gratitude. "Keep going, Nova. Show me the way." Robert, barely conscious, mumbled, "She's amazing. She always knew. Trust her." The climb was a blur of pain and terror. The rain picked up again, and the ground seemed ready to slide out from under them at any moment. Nova picked the narrowest path, hopping from root to root, showing where it was safe to step. When Ashley's arms felt ready to give out, she found herself at the top of the ravine. She dragged Robert up the last few feet, collapsing in the grass, chest heaving. Nova leaped up beside them, shaking out her muddy fur and meowing, a proud, almost victorious sound. Ashley wiped her face, checked Robert's pulse, and forced herself to sit up. She dragged him farther from the edge, fearing another landslide. The road was out of sight, hidden by trees and brush, but through the pounding rain, she heard a faint, distant wail, the siren of an emergency vehicle. Relief washed through her. Help was coming, but the storm wasn't done yet. She grabbed the flare, waving it high above her head, hoping it would cut through the gloom. Nova paced beside her, tail high, eyes fixed on the direction of the sound. Ashley pressed Robert's hand. You're going to make it. Nova and I, we did this together. Robert, drifting in and out of consciousness, managed a small, grateful smile. Didn't know she'd trust someone else. Ashley grinned through tears, looking from him to Nova. Sometimes, the world surprises us. The siren drew closer, the howl cutting through the storm, and for the first time that day, hope felt stronger than fear. Ashley glanced at Nova, her unlikely partner, and realized that without the Bobcat, neither she nor Robert would have survived. She squeezed Robert's hand one more time, eyes scanning the woods for the first sign of rescue. In the chaos and wildness of the storm, they had outlasted disaster by trusting each other. Cop, wildcat, and injured stranger bound together by courage and the thinnest thread of hope. Distant lights flickered through the trees, red and blue, flashing through the rain. Ashley let out a shaky breath, her voice barely a whisper. We made it. Nova, watching the lights approach, pressed her side against Robert, refusing to leave him even now. Ashley smiled, realizing that, in the face of nature's fury, loyalty and love had saved them all. Floodlights slashed through the trees, illuminating the rain-soaked chaos at the rim of the ravine. Emergency crews burst through the brush, boots and radios crackling, voices urgent above the fading thunder. In that dizzying moment, Ashley felt time slow, relief flooding her limbs, mingled with new tension. Now that help had arrived, there was no guarantee everything would end well, not for Robert, and certainly not for Nova. "Over here!" Ashley shouted, waving the dying flare. The paramedics spotted her and rushed to her side, their faces pinched with concern as they assessed the scene. A battered state trooper, a bleeding man barely clinging to consciousness, and a wild bobcat kitten pressed against the injured hiker's chest, refusing to move. One EMT knelt beside Robert, cutting away the makeshift bandages, voice low and urgent. "Pulse is weak. Let's get him on oxygen." Another started setting up a portable IV, shouting for a stretcher. The team worked with well-practiced efficiency, but their eyes flicked nervously to Nova, uncertain how to handle the wild animal who refused to leave Robert's side. "Ma'am, you need to move away from the animal. Let us do our job," a rescue worker insisted, trying to wave Ashley off. Ashley shook her head. "She's not dangerous. She's the reason we found him at all. Please, don't spook her. She won't leave him. Let me stay." The team hesitated, torn between protocol and the desperate reality in front of them. One paramedic, a young woman named Carter, studied Nova's muddy, trembling body and nodded to Ashley. "If she trusts you, stay close. Just don't let her bite anyone." Ashley knelt at Robert's other side, gently stroking Nova's head. The bobcat's eyes glistened with fear, but her body pressed tighter to Robert, as if she could hold him to life by sheer force of will. Behind them, the ravine rumbled with new violence. The stream had become a river, swollen with debris and churning water, the banks crumbling under the weight of the flood. If they'd stayed even 10 minutes longer, Ashley realized, all three would have been swept away. With quick coordination, the medics eased Robert onto a stretcher, securing his wounded leg and lifting him through the mud. Nova followed, yowling in protest each time they tried to separate her from Robert. Ashley hovered at her side, whispering soothing words. The medics exchanged looks, but didn't argue. They emerged onto firmer ground as the floodwaters surged behind them. Flashlights and headlights merged in a storm-lit tableau. Police cars, fire trucks, and a line of curious onlookers behind the barricades. Ashley heard her own name on someone's radio. She was alive, found, and for a heartbeat the exhaustion hit her like a wave. A supervisor hustled up, clipboard in hand, already barking orders. "Cole, you're supposed to stay with your unit. What the hell happened out here?" Ashley could barely find her voice. We found Robert Whitley. We followed the Bobcat. Nova. She led us the whole way. The supervisor eyed the wild animal dubiously. That's not standard procedure. Robert, barely conscious on the stretcher, forced out a raspy whisper. She saved me. Don't let them take her. The paramedics loaded him into the ambulance, Nova pacing anxiously until Ashley lifted her onto the bench seat. One of the EMTs looked skeptical, but Carter overrode him. She stays with the patient, for now. As the ambulance doors slammed, Ashley sagged into the seat beside Robert. Nova curled at his feet. The rain beat against the windows, the world outside still wild and uncertain. Ashley finally let herself exhale, hands trembling from adrenaline and cold. The ride to the hospital was a blur. Oxygen masks, shouted instructions, Nova's steady presence, and Robert's fitful, murmured gratitude. When they arrived, doctors and nurses swept into action, hustling Robert into the ER. For the first time, hospital security tried to bar Nova at the door. Ashley stood her ground, arms wrapped protectively around the Bobcat. She's not a pet. She's a service animal. She's part of this rescue. I'll take full responsibility. The charge nurse eyed her skeptically, but relented, on the condition that Nova stay in the waiting area. Ashley wrapped Nova in a spare towel, settling into a plastic chair and staring out at the swirling rain. The minutes dragged. Voices buzzed around her, questions, paperwork, threats of suspension for leaving her post. Ashley barely heard them. Her mind kept replaying every decision, every risk, every step that had led her to trust Nova, to trust her own gut over the demands of her badge. Finally, a familiar face approached. Dr. Lila Green, the local wildlife biologist. She'd been following Robert's case since his disappearance. Ashley Cole, I heard what happened. And this is Nova? Ashley nodded, too tired for words. Dr. Green crouched beside Nova, eyes wide with awe. She's grown so much. Robert raised her after her mother was hit by a car. She was always different, smarter, loyal in ways I never expected. Ashley looked at Nova, her heart full. She's more than just smart. She's brave. She trusted me. She saved both of us. Dr. Green smiled softly. Robert always said Nova wasn't fully wild anymore, but she'd never be tame. She's something in between. Maybe that's why she bridges worlds the way she does. Hours passed. News crews arrived, their cameras glinting as the story began to spread. Bobcat rescues missing hiker. Trooper disobeys orders, saves 2 lives. Ashley was celebrated by some, criticized by others. But none of it seemed to matter. Not compared to the memory of Nova's eyes, the way she'd refused to abandon her human. At last, a doctor emerged with an exhausted smile. He's going to be okay. You saved him, both of you. He keeps asking about Nova. Ashley brought Nova to Robert's bedside. The older man managed a weak, grateful smile. You both. You're family now. He took Nova's paw in his hand, tears slipping down his battered cheek. You're not wild. You're not tame. You're just you. Ashley, watching them, understood. Nova's courage and loyalty had shattered the line between animal and human, wildness and loyalty. In a world obsessed with categories, she was proof that love, real, stubborn, impossible love, could not be contained. The rescue team, watching, stood in silent respect. For the first time, no one argued. Nova was given water, a blanket, and a place at Robert's side as he drifted into sleep, safe at last. Ashley leaned against the window, listening to the rain, and knew that whatever came next, the world would never look the same. It took less than 12 hours for Nova's story to explode across social media. What started as a strange, heart-stopping night in a Texas ravine became the headline on every major news network by morning. At first, the facts blurred together. Trooper risks life to save missing hiker, with help from a bobcat. Wild animal leads police to rescue in storm. Is this Texas's bravest cat? By breakfast, hashtags like #Nova the Bobcat and #Bobcat Rescue trended from Houston to Los Angeles. Inside the hospital, Ashley Cole sat beside Robert's bed, exhaustion seeping into every bone. Nova lay curled at Robert's feet, her breathing steady, a silent guardian against the bright and beeping chaos of the ICU. Around them, hospital staff bustled, glancing in at the wildcat and the trooper with a mixture of awe and concern. Ashley's phone, left charging on a plastic chair, buzzed with message after message, reporters, old colleagues, even childhood friends she hadn't spoken to in years. Most congratulated her. Some questioned her judgment. In the comment sections online, the world was divided. Some praised Ashley's courage, calling her a hero, a real-life Dr. Dolittle. They celebrated Nova as a symbol of loyalty and hope. But others condemned her for breaking protocol. There were angry comments about wasting taxpayer dollars, about endangering public safety for a wild animal. Some demanded Nova be returned to the wild immediately. Others called for her to be euthanized, labeling her a threat. Through it all, Ashley tried to focus on what mattered: Robert's slow recovery, Nova's wary calm, the way the hospital night nurse started leaving extra food for the bobcat outside the door. On the third morning, Ashley was called to a meeting in the hospital conference room. She arrived still in uniform, boots scuffed, her badge clipped to her chest. Inside, her supervisor, Captain Morales, waited along with a lawyer from the State Troopers Association, Dr. Lila Green, and a pair of wildlife officials. Morales didn't waste time. "Cole, you know you're under review for breaking protocol, abandoning your post, and endangering yourself. Do you have anything to say before the board decides your fate?" Ashley felt a lump in her throat, but kept her voice steady. "Sir, I made a call. There was a life at stake. Nova led me to Robert. If I'd waited for animal control or a search team, he would have died. I stand by what I did." The lawyer leaned forward. "The department is under a lot of pressure, Officer Cole. Public opinion is split. The media attention is unprecedented." Dr. Green chimed in, pushing her glasses up her nose. "If I may, Nova isn't just any wild animal. She's been documented in Robert's care since she was a kitten. She's not tame, but she's no ordinary bobcat either. She could be an ambassador, a bridge between wild and human, conservation and community." One of the wildlife officials frowned. "That's not our call. Normally, any wild animal involved in a human rescue is subject to quarantine and assessment. In many cases, euthanasia is on the table." Ashley's fists clenched under the table. She saved a man's life. She's not dangerous. She's loyal. If you kill her, you're sending the wrong message. The room fell silent. Morales looked at Dr. Green. "What do you propose?" Dr. Green's voice was calm but passionate. "Let Nova stay with Robert, under controlled supervision. Let her become a wildlife ambassador, helping teach people about conservation, about the line between wildness and connection. Let her story inspire instead of frighten." The lawyer nodded. "Public support is strong. If we present this the right way, it could be a win for everyone." Morales sighed, then nodded slowly. "Fine. But Cole, you're off patrol until this is resolved. You'll help at the Wildlife Center with Dr. Green. Public outreach, education, media. Understood?" Ashley breathed out, feeling the tension in her shoulders loosen. "Yes, sir." When she returned to the ICU, the mood had changed. Reporters gathered in the hallway. The hospital PR team wanted a photo op. Parents in the pediatric wing asked if Nova could visit, hoping her story would inspire their own sick children. For Nova, the change was bewildering. She pressed closer to Robert, eyes darting at the cameras. Ashley crouched beside her, offering a steady hand. "It's okay, Nova. They're just curious." The next day, the hospital hosted a press conference in the sunny atrium. Ashley wore a fresh uniform. Robert, pale but grinning, sat in a wheelchair with Nova at his feet. Dr. Green explained Nova's background to the cameras, describing her rescue, her bond with Robert, and her unlikely role as a teacher. A journalist asked, "Officer Cole, do you regret breaking the rules to follow a wild animal?" Ashley met their gaze, her answer ringing out across the crowd. "If following my heart means saving a life, even if it's not by the book, I'll take that risk." Nova showed us that sometimes bridging the gap between worlds is worth everything. Afterward, Ashley stood in the hospital corridor, watching the news coverage. Some stations painted her as a maverick hero, others as a liability. Her fellow officers texted mixed reactions, some proud, others critical. But in the midst of the noise, Dr. Green pulled her aside. "Ashley, I meant what I said. I want you on my team at the Conservation Center. Nova needs you. The kids need you. The world needs people who are willing to cross boundaries." Ashley looked at Nova, her wild, wise friend, and saw a new chapter ahead. The world had changed, and so had she. That evening, in the quiet of Robert's recovery room, Nova purred against Ashley's leg. Robert drifted in and out of sleep, and Ashley realized that sometimes the hardest choices led to the brightest hope. As darkness fell outside, Ashley opened the window, letting in the cool night air and the distant sound of rain. Nova lifted her head, ears pricked, as if listening for the wild world beyond the glass. Ashley smiled. "You're not alone anymore, Nova. None of us are." And somewhere in the city, in homes and schools and hospitals, children watched the news and wondered, if a wild bobcat and a rookie trooper could change the world, maybe they could too. Sunlight spilled through the glass walls of the new Texas Wildlife Education Center, bathing the wide-open atrium in warm gold. The building was alive with sound, laughter, children's footsteps, the murmur of parents and teachers. Everywhere, there were reminders of Nova, murals painted with her likeness, brochures bearing her story, small statues in the gardens outside. The once wild bobcat, once an outcast, had become a living symbol of hope and connection for the community. Ashley Cole leaned against a railing on the second-floor overlook, watching as a group of school kids filed in for their field trip. Their eyes were wide, their voices loud with anticipation. It had been months since the storm, since Nova's rescue of Robert Whitley and the storm that changed all of their lives. The world outside had moved on. New headlines, new viral stories. But here at the center, Nova's legend continued to grow. Down below, Dr. Lila Green greeted the children, her voice warm and animated. "Who's ready to meet a real hero?" she called, gesturing toward a large enclosure set up with logs, climbing posts, and sun-warmed stones. Nova, sleek and healthy now, watched from her favorite perch, a low branch that let her observe everything without being surrounded. Ashley smiled to herself. She still remembered the first time Nova entered this space. The bobcat had prowled the enclosure's edge, nose twitching, tail low, uncertain and wary. But over the weeks, with Robert's gentle presence and Ashley's encouragement, Nova adapted. She had never become tame. She was still wild at heart. But she learned to accept gentle touches, to sit quietly while children stared in awe, to tolerate the buzz of cameras and crowds. Ashley walked down to join Dr. Green as the children gathered at the glass. A little girl pressed her palm to the barrier, her face inches from Nova's. "She's so pretty. Is she really the cat who saved Mr. Whitley?" Ashley knelt beside her, voice soft but proud. "That's right. Nova's not just brave. She's smart too. She found help when no one else could. And now she's helping us teach everyone about protecting animals and their homes." The girl's eyes were huge. "Will she bite?" Dr. Green laughed gently. "Only if you try to tickle her tummy. But Nova's learned that humans can be friends." Nova, sensing the children's curiosity, came closer, her amber eyes steady and unafraid. There was a hush as she pressed her paw gently to the glass, mirroring the child's hand. In that instant, any fear dissolved, replaced by wonder. Ashley's heart swelled. She remembered how lost she'd felt before all this, adrift in her career, doubting her instincts, never quite fitting in. But here, surrounded by laughter and learning, she'd found purpose. She'd started volunteering at the center every week, trading her badge for a staff polo shirt and a job that felt more right with every day. Sometimes, she worked with Dr. Green on education programs, teaching kids about conservation, about empathy, about second chances. Sometimes she helped Robert, now fully recovered, as he gently introduced Nova to new experiences. Short walks on a leash in the garden, puzzle feeders filled with treats, the rare, careful brush of a child's hand through the fence with supervision. Each small victory felt like a miracle. The community's response had been overwhelming. Local artists painted murals of Nova along downtown alleys. Lawmakers debated bills to fund more wildlife rescue centers, citing her as a symbol of what was possible when people cared. The center's gift shop sold out of Nova plushies and T-shirts every week. Even Texas license plates featured Nova's image, the words "Protect Our Wild" curling below her amber eyes. But the biggest change was in the people themselves. Parents who'd once been afraid of wild animals brought their children to learn. Hunters and ranchers stopped by to ask questions, to tell stories, to admit, sometimes sheepishly, that maybe there was more to animals like Nova than they'd thought. Even Ashley's fellow troopers, once skeptical, sometimes dropped in on their days off, bringing their families to hear the story for themselves. One Saturday, as the center filled with visitors, a reporter from a national news outlet arrived to film a follow-up. He cornered Ashley after a presentation, microphone in hand. "Officer Cole, some say Nova's just a lucky animal who got a second chance. Others say she changed this whole community. What do you think?" Ashley thought about it. She looked at Nova, then at the crowd of children still pressing hands to the glass. "I think she's both. Nova's a survivor, but she also changed us. She showed us that courage comes in all shapes and sizes, and that we can't protect what we don't understand. One animal, one act of bravery, sometimes that's all it takes to start something big." The interview aired nationwide. Donations poured in for the center, and Ashley's inbox filled with messages from other first responders, teachers, and wildlife rescuers across the country. Many wanted to visit, to learn, to bring Nova's message back to their own communities. That afternoon, Ashley found Robert sitting outside in the shade, watching Nova nap on her branch. He smiled as she sat down beside him. "Did you ever think it'd turn out like this?" he asked. Ashley shook her head, a quiet laugh escaping her lips. "Not in a million years. I never thought I'd find my place by following a bobcat into the woods." Robert squeezed her hand. "Sometimes, the right path is the one you can't see until you take the first step." They sat in companionable silence. The sounds of the center, a child's laughter, Nova's soft purr, the rustle of leaves, filling the air around them. Ashley felt something settle inside her, a peace she'd never known before. She wasn't an outsider anymore. She belonged here, at the intersection of wild and human, past and future. As dusk approached, Dr. Green gathered everyone for a ceremony, the unveiling of a plaque and the center's new name, the Nova Whitley Conservation Center. Kids and parents clapped. Teachers wiped tears from their eyes, and even some hardened ranchers tipped their hats. Ashley stepped up to the microphone, Nova at her side. Her voice rang clear. This center is for everyone who's ever felt like an outsider, for every wild thing and every person willing to listen. Nova showed us that change is possible, and that it always begins with a single act of courage. A ripple of applause swept through the crowd. Nova, sensing the mood, rubbed against Ashley's leg, then leaped to a nearby bench where a small child sat frozen with awe. Gently, Nova touched her nose to the girl's outstretched hand. In that moment, the room seemed to hold its breath. A new generation, inspired by the bond between a state trooper and a bobcat, found the courage to believe in second chances. Autumn in Texas came quietly, gold and red leaves spinning in lazy spirals through the woods behind the Nova Whitley Conservation Center. The air had turned crisp, the sunlight mellow, and the world seemed to pause and breathe between seasons. Ashley Cole found herself in a different rhythm these days, one that fit her soul like an old favorite shirt. Slow mornings, gentle walks through dew-wet grass, afternoons spent teaching children lessons that mattered. On a cool Saturday, she led a small group of kids along a trail behind the center, Nova prowling at her side. The children were bundled in jackets, wide-eyed and whispering, peering into the tangle of undergrowth for glimpses of deer or the flash of a bird's wing. Ashley watched them with a quiet pride, the joy of seeing curiosity bloom where there had once been only fear. Nova moved with the grace of something both wild and wise. Though she wore a harness for safety, there was no mistaking her confidence. Her tail flicked high, her steps unhurried as she paused to sniff a cluster of mushrooms or gaze into the branches above. The children followed her every move, delight and awe painted across their faces. "Stay close, everyone," Ashley called, her voice gentle but sure. "We're guests in Nova's woods." The group wove between trees, feet crunching on fallen leaves. Ashley pointed out signs of wildlife: a chewed twig, a raccoon's muddy paw print, the faint mark of a deer's hoof in soft earth. Each discovery sparked new questions. Why do animals hide their tracks? Can Nova talk to other cats? Is it true she used to be afraid of people? At the edge of a small clearing, Ashley paused. She remembered the first time she'd stepped into this forest, terrified, unsure, following Nova into the unknown. That day had changed everything. Not just her own life, but Robert's, Nova's, and now the lives of every person touched by their story. She turned to face the children, Nova sitting quietly by her boot. "I want to tell you something important," Ashley began. "When I first met Nova, I was scared. I didn't know if I could trust her, or if she would trust me. But I had to take a chance, even though it meant stepping away from what felt safe." A boy in a red jacket raised his hand. "Were you ever really scared? Like for real?" Ashley nodded, her gaze warm. "Yes, I was terrified. But sometimes when you're scared, it means you're about to do something brave. Trust doesn't happen all at once. You build it little by little, by showing up, by listening, by being willing to help, even if you're not sure how." Nova yawned, baring her sharp teeth, then rubbed against Ashley's leg. The children giggled, the tension melting. Another child asked, "Is Nova tame now?" Ashley smiled, shaking her head. "Nova isn't tame. She's herself. She's wild, but she's also my friend. She belongs to both worlds, just like some of us do too. The children grew thoughtful, turning over the idea in their minds. Ashley crouched to their level, looking from face to face. We all feel like outsiders sometimes, maybe at school or at home or even in our own heads. But sometimes, being different is the best thing you can be. Nova taught me that being brave means trusting others and letting yourself be changed by what you find. A girl with curly hair tugged Ashley's sleeve. How did you know you could trust her? Ashley thought back to the moment on the highway, the kitten sitting stubbornly in the heat, asking for help with her eyes. I didn't, not at first, but Nova showed me, little by little. She led me into the woods, and even when I was lost, she never left me behind. Trust isn't about being sure. It's about taking that first step, together. The group fell silent, listening to the rustle of leaves overhead. A gentle breeze swept the clearing, and Ashley felt a wave of gratitude for the wildness that lived in Nova, for the courage that had brought them all here, and for the hope that filled each child's eyes. Ashley continued, voice soft but strong. Sometimes, the world needs people who walk a different path. Nova didn't save Robert and me by being like everyone else. She did it by being herself, wild, brave, and full of heart. One of the boys squinted up at her. Are you glad you followed her? Ashley's eyes sparkled. I'm glad every single day. She changed my life. And because of her, I get to help other people find their own courage too. The children smiled, comforted by the story and by Nova's steady, unflinching presence. Ashley led them onward, deeper into the woods, showing them the small wonders hidden beneath every fallen log and patch of moss. Nova slipped between the trees, her movements a reminder that wildness could be both close and mysterious, something to be cherished rather than feared. After a while, the group circled back toward the center. As they reached the edge of the forest, Ashley paused, letting the kids file past. She looked back at the woods, her heart full of memories, of rain and fear, of hope and discovery. Nova paused too, glancing over her shoulder with an almost knowing look. Ashley bent to scratch the bobcat behind the ears. You ready to head in, girl? Nova pressed her head into Ashley's palm, her eyes calm and wise. In that moment, the boundary between human and animal, wild and familiar, seemed to dissolve. As the children ran ahead, laughing, Ashley took one last look at the forest, the place where she'd learned to let go of fear and trust in something greater. She realized that for all its uncertainty, the wild had given her more than she ever expected. It had given her family, purpose, and the strength to believe that even the smallest act of courage could change the world. Inside, the children crowded around, eager to tell their parents what they'd learned. Ashley watched as Nova lay down in a patch of sun, surrounded by gentle hands and bright smiles. To anyone watching, it looked like a miracle. To Ashley, it was simply proof of what could happen when you opened your heart to the unknown. Sometimes, she told herself, those who are different really do change the world. Twilight bathed the Nova Whitley Conservation Center in a soft, lavender glow. The last of the day's visitors had drifted home, their laughter lingering in the air like the distant song of crickets. Ashley Cole sat alone on a bench just outside the main building, the weight of the day's lessons and the story that had brought her here settling gently on her shoulders. From her vantage point, she watched Nova, her silhouette lit by the fading sun, prowling the edge of the safe woods behind the center. The bobcat's movements were unhurried, tail flicking as she paused to listen, to sniff the wind, to greet the coming night with all her senses alert. There was no more fear in her eyes, only the watchful curiosity and confidence of a creature who had found her place between two worlds. Ashley let herself breathe in the sounds and scents of dusk, the gentle hum of insects, the cool breeze carrying the fresh promise of tomorrow, the rustle of grass as Nova vanished and reappeared between shadows. For the first time in years, Ashley felt a deep and peaceful calm, as if the long journey that began on a sun-baked highway was finally, if quietly, complete. But change, she realized, was never a matter of neat endings. Nova's journey was still ongoing, her story woven into the lives of everyone she'd touched, the children she'd inspired, the people she'd brought together, the lessons she'd taught about hope and trust and second chances. They would ripple out, growing larger with every retelling. Ashley thought back on her own choices, that first moment of doubt and courage, stepping out of her cruiser when the crowd jeered and the storm threatened. She remembered ignoring the rules, following her gut, and trusting an animal most people would have driven off the road. Each act of compassion, no matter how small, had led to something larger. Robert's rescue, Nova's second chance, the birth of a community united by care and curiosity. She realized now that true change didn't come from safety or certainty. It came from risking vulnerability, from choosing empathy when it would have been easier to look away. It was about reaching across boundaries, about being brave enough to act, even when you stood alone. As the sun dipped lower, Ashley heard soft footsteps behind her. Robert approached, leaning on a cane but smiling with quiet pride. He sat beside her, letting the silence stretch between them, comfortable and companionable. "She's at peace, you know," Robert said, nodding toward Nova's silhouette. "So are you, I think." Ashley smiled, feeling the truth of his words. "For the first time in a long while. I used to think belonging meant fitting in. Turns out it's about making a place for yourself, and for others, wherever you are." Robert nodded, his eyes bright in the dim light. "You changed things, Ashley. Not just for Nova and me. For all of us. You showed the whole world what happens when someone decides to care." Ashley looked at Nova, still prowling the border between wild and safe, and realized that was what they all did, in their own way, bridging the gap between the lives they knew and the lives they hoped to build. She felt a surge of gratitude, not just for Nova and Robert, but for the strangers who had become friends, the children who now believed in the magic of kindness, the families who looked at wildness with new understanding. In the gathering dusk, Nova paused at the tree line and glanced back over her shoulder. Ashley met her gaze, their bond deeper now than words could express. In that look, she saw the journey they had taken, from fear to hope, from isolation to connection, from strangers to family. Ashley turned to the camera, a habit now from all the visitors, the interviews, the curious crowds. She spoke to everyone who might listen. Nova's story taught us that every act of courage, every moment of kindness, no matter how small, can change a life, and sometimes even change the world. If you're moved by her journey, share it. Support your local shelters, your wildlife rescues, your neighbors. Remember, the wild, the lost, and the brave are all around us. Sometimes, all they need is someone willing to believe. She rose from the bench as Robert stood beside her, and together, they walked toward the center, light spilling from the windows to guide them home. Inside, families gathered for an evening event. A little girl waved at Nova's mural on the wall. A teenage boy, once afraid of animals, signed up to volunteer. Old ranchers, city kids, single parents, and shy newcomers, all mingled in the shared space, bound by the lesson that compassion, once given, always grows. Outside, Nova settled at the edge of the woods, watching her people. She knew where she belonged now, not fully wild, not ever tame, but the bridge between two worlds. Her legacy was more than survival or fame. It was a living lesson in the power of trust, the strength of difference, and the beauty of daring to care. Ashley watched the scene unfold, her heart full and her doubts quiet. She understood now that each of them was a bridge, between fear and hope, between the known and the wild, between past pain and new beginnings. As the night deepened, Ashley sat by the window, pen in hand, and wrote a simple message for the center's visitors, an invitation, a challenge, and a hope. When you look at the world around you, will you risk reaching out? Will you be the one who helps, who heals, who dares to care? She placed the note at the entrance where everyone could see it. It was a call to action, but also a reminder. What we leave behind matters more than we ever know. Nova's story, Ashley realized, would go on, as long as someone was willing to listen and to believe. And in that, she found her greatest peace of all.